From courtside of the virtual hardwood, it's the NLSC Podcast. This is episode 522. I'm Andrew in our forum, Andrew NLSC on X. With me as always, my co-host Derek, DP3 in our forum, and DP3G and DP384 on X. Derek, good to be talking to you as always. To that end, what are we going to be talking about this week?
So our main topic is going to be basketball gaming on PC and PC gaming in general. Basically discussing, how much does a good gaming PC cost? And this is for desktops and laptops. What our rigs are, Andrew, like what we PC game on. And this topic was also part of this week's mailbag. So we had some insight from the community on what the price would be for a good gaming PC and if they think PC gaming is worth it in 2024, either on its own or, alongside console gaming. And we will also be discussing whether we believe NBA 2K25 will come to PC and what the benefits for the company are for them to bring it to PC. But before we get into those main topics, Windows 11, Andrew, you and I over the last couple days have done hours of troubleshooting trying to get NBA Live 2003 to work for that operating system. We tried to get it to work without VMware, so without a virtual machine running XP and Windows 7. And then we tried it with those operating systems with VMware, and we just can't get it to run properly.
And I don't like being defeated by technology. I mean, I am a computer repairman by trade, so this is the kind of stuff I'm supposed to be able to solve, Derek. So it's frustrating for you because you want to play on that new laptop you have. But I feel the answer is a few steps away. I feel like we've been making some progress with it, but yeah, virtual machines let us down on this occasion, unfortunately. And this is the frustrating thing about Windows 11, is you look at Xbox. Xbox has probably better backwards compatibility in many ways than PlayStation. PlayStation 5 will play PlayStation 4 games, for example, nothing earlier. There's more backwards compatibility solutions with Xbox Series X, yet Windows is not doing a great job of backwards compatibility. So for retro gaming enthusiasts like ourselves, it's not a very good operating system.
So I think the frustrating thing is when you use emulators on Windows 11, right? Like PCSX2, the PS1 emulator, the RPCS3 PS3 emulator, the XEMU, which is the Xbox one. When you use all of these different emulators, Sega Genesis, Super NES, so you go all the way back, the NES emulators, all of those work flawless on Windows 11. So you're sitting there in front of your computer, Andrew, and you're playing 8-bit games, right?
Yeah.
You're playing 16-bit games on your Windows 11 computer. You're playing NBA Live 2003 on the GameCube emulator, etc. And it's beautiful. It works perfect. You and I have had multiple Parsec sessions playing older games on my Windows 11 laptop. The problem is that it's some of the PC games, like the ones where you would use a disc, like NBA Live 2003, NBA Live 2004, NBA Live 2005, etc. So, the compatibility just isn't there for those, but I have a feeling that we're going to find a good workaround and we're going to get these to work eventually.
There are, of course, the fixed executables available to download on the NLSC. We've got them out there for people to aid in retro gaming. And the reason we have those, not to get all into it and get all technical about it, but in the early 2000s, a lot of games were being released, a lot of software was being released with a particular copy protection driver that has been removed from, well, it's actually patched out of Windows 7 with an update, and 8.1, Windows 10 and 11 don't support it at all. So looking at the wider retro PC gaming community, this is an issue that a lot of people are dealing with when they want to play their old games. So fortunately, we're not alone in that regard, and there are some solutions out there. I actually saw one, as I mentioned a few weeks ago, on another podcast I heard about it, which I need to try out. It's an alternate solution that might actually work with Windows 11 better than what we've been doing. But trying to emulate that old hardware, those old chipsets, those old video cards, there is a bit more tinkering there that the emulators for consoles have worked out, but I think we can get there in the end.
Yeah, I mean, there is something special about having these PC versions. Some people might be like, well, why don't you just play the PS2 version? Why don't you just play the GameCube
modding,
right? Or whatever. Exactly. Thank you. But on PC, not only can you get these games often to run smoother and look better than what they do on console, but you have things like broadcast camera mods, right? Or different camera mods in general that give you a different view of the action. You have retro scoreboards, like you could do like TNT, like scoreboards, NBC if they were made for that game, or you could, get into modding yourself and create your own scoreboards. You also have retro season mods, like for example, your 95-96 mod for NBA Live 2004, right? So like there's, a lot of advantages to being able to play on PC. And we're going to get into some of that later when we start talking about, is PC gaming worth it in 2024 and whatnot. But yeah, we'll get there eventually. However, something else we wanted to discuss before we get into the main topic, Andrew. March Modness, which is an event you run on the NLSC every single year, is wrapping up. And you wanted to talk about something that you released for the event and also discuss a topic that you are pretty passionate about.
That's right, yeah, and it is modding related, and when it comes to modding, especially in our community, it has mostly been focused around the PC. That's what we were founded as, the NBA Live Series Center, back in 1996, almost 30 years ago now, Derek, around NBA Live 95 and 96 PC originally. That's what really tipped things off with our founders back in the day. But you can do some modding on console, obviously, and you certainly can do minimalist modding. You can update rosters, you can share those files. When it comes to Xbox 360, and that is relevant because this is what I'll be sharing, you do need to rehash those files so that they will work with your profile. Sharing roster files on PS3 for various games, 2K and Live, is much easier, but it is something I'll be doing, sharing some rosters for NBA 2K6 for Xbox 360, a game that I have come to really enjoy. It has retroactively become one of my all-time favorites, as I mentioned in an article late last year, Derek, when I did my top 25 favorite basketball video games, at least as of August last year. And I've been rolling back the rosters to 2005, updating the rosters to the end of 2006, and also putting together some all-time team rosters as much as you can with all of 20 creative players, Derek. 20 creative players. Last week we talked about a sandbox game. You couldn't have 20 creative player slots in the game we were talking about last week, hypothetically. That just wouldn't do. And also the legends that are in the game already. So just making use of those assets. And those will be out on the site. If not by the time this episode is out, then certainly shortly afterwards. And this is something that I really encourage people to do, Derek. Look, you've seen the screenshot of the Michael Jordan I made. It's about the best you can do with NBA 2K6 for Xbox 360, with the face creation tools you have, with everything you can do in that creative player. Although, frankly, it does fit in with some of the Legends faces they have in that game. Larry Bird's is very not Larry Bird-like, shall we say. But this is something I encourage people to do, that it's great to have detailed mods on PC. And if I was modding a PC game, Derek, I would absolutely be sourcing all the necessary art files so that I could have all that accuracy, adding as many players as possible, pushing the limits because we can do the external modding, right? With games where you don't have that flexibility, especially on console, you can still have a good time. You can still make a player that looks kind of like what they're supposed to be, plays like the player they're supposed to be, and have fun on the virtual hardwood. Is it going to be totally accurate? No, but it can be a lot of fun. And you look at the makeshift classic teams we put together in NBA Live 10 for our Parsec sessions, you can have a lot of fun with minimalist modding. Call it improv modding. Just, like arts and crafts back in primary school, in elementary school. Just getting what you have on the table, putting together some kind of custom roster and enjoying it. I just encourage it so much.
Back to your point about creating Michael Jordan in NBA 2K6, that's the same type of thing that Teddy Bear the Gamer did with NBA Live 18 and NBA Live 19, right? And if you take a look at his highlights that were in the top 10 plays of the week for those games using that Michael Jordan creation, and I said it on the last episode, from a broadcast angle, Andrew, and even from behind and sometimes from the side in the close-up views, he looks like Michael Jordan.
Possible,
right?
yeah.
He blends in with the rest of the players, and you can really, feel like you're watching Michael Jordan. So no matter how limited the create a player feature is in a video game, you can make the player mostly look like they should from that actual gameplay angle. And that's what we had to do when we were younger, Andrew. We had to use our imagination a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
Which might be why I'm more open to it, I guess. I guess younger gamers who are more used to the detailed mods may not be as willing to use their imagination, whereas we had to. So I admit that works in my favor, but yeah, use your imaginations.
I mean, it was easier to create players, that would blend in with their surroundings back in the day, because sometimes the players didn't even have eyes, or there were dots for eyes,
Very true.
and whatnot. And there was only about 4 or 5 hairstyles or something in the game.
Blonde Stockton, Lakers versus Celtics.
Right. But yeah, use your imagination, get the most out of these games. And, I think that still, even with, retro gaming, there is a lot of people who still play on consoles, right? I was just looking at a PS2 thread where they were talking about how the PS2 reached around 160 million in sales. Isn't that crazy, Andrew? 160 million units.
Yeah, one of the most successful consoles.
Yeah. And when I say 160 million in sales, I don't mean dollars, I mean units, right?
Yeah.
160 million units sold. And I think PS5, I think they said that it's at 50 million, something like that. So I think that PS2 era, like around the PS2, Xbox, that time frame, I think that's definitely one of the golden ages, right, in video games. But anyway, I was looking at that thread, and there was tons of comments of people stating, my PS2 still works. I still use it all the time, right? So I think that there's still a lot of people playing these games on consoles. So yeah, use your imagination and use the tools in game. And like Andrew said, you can roll back rosters. Sometimes you can, push forward the roster a couple years and whatnot. And I know that on NBA Live 2001 and NBA Live 2004, I've seen Nate and Roger, the Live 01 legends, do a lot of that, right? And
it inspired me, absolutely.
Yeah, and sometimes our listeners do that too, right? Like they inspire us, and we hope that we inspire you guys sometimes with some of the topics that we talk about. But some of the things that you do, when you show the footage and you talk on social media about the projects you're working on video games and whatnot, it gives Andrew and I ideas. So definitely cool stuff.
And of course, you can do minimalist modding on PC as well. I mean, if you're still playing, say, NBA 2K20, you could just set up a 2024 matchup just using the players in the game. Just have a quick match, edit the rosters for 2 teams. Look what I did with NBA 2K14 for PS4, Derek. I was able to have a couple of 2024 season matchups using players that are still active in NBA 2K14 PS4, put that together, so you can definitely do a better job with NBA 2K20, 2K21, 2K22. You don't need to do a full roster update if you just want to play that game with a couple of updated teams and just for fun, just as a once-off. Of course, you can do a bigger project if you like, but the point is you can just throw something together quickly, Derek, and using the assets available to you, and have a great time. And you can do that on any platform. Console, obviously, you're kind of restricted to do that more so with console than on PC. We do have those detailed PC mods, and we want to have those detailed PC mods. There's just so many great ones throughout the years, as we've said before, and it's why we want to have 2K continue to come out on PC, which, again, we'll get into momentarily. But just don't let not having all the detail of a completed mod restrict the fun you have on the virtual hardwood. That's my message here, Derek.
Yeah, and I mean, these games have so much replayability anyway, right?
Sure.
And I mean, even going back to the early 90s, you can play full seasons, right? Like I've talked about it before. I've played a full season on Tecmo Super NBA basketball. And what's in that game, Andrew? Stat tracking, too, right? These games already have a ton of replayability, and you have so many titles to choose from over the last 30 to 35 years that just could give you endless fun. And some of these games, Andrew, you can pick up for so cheap.
Oh, right? Yeah.
For like the price of a pack of gum. Like for a price, you go out and, a Starbucks coffee, like a fancy Starbucks coffee is around $4 or $5 or something like that. You can sometimes pick up a couple games for that price and whatnot. And I promise you'll get more out of those video games than you will, that Starbucks coffee.
it should last a bit longer, you'd hope. But yeah, definitely shop around. As we've said before, you don't need to break the bank, especially on these very common titles where there are plenty of them in circulation. And again, look at the top 10 that you put together every week, Derek, that the community submits highlights for. Those highlights are coming from a variety of games. The last few weeks, I want to say we've had an average of 7 to 8 different titles. I think we might have even hit 9 or 10 a couple of times. So it's a lot of people are just enjoying a variety of games right now, modding those games as well. It's great to see.
I'm seeing a bunch of posts on X, formerly known as Twitter, about 2K24 kind of being dead at this point. It shouldn't be, Andrew. You know, we're still in March, right? And you know, coming into April, the game shouldn't be dead yet. There's still a bunch of months on that game's life cycle. But I think that it's very possible that it's more dead than ever at this point of the year. I'd have to look at the statistics, but I don't see a lot of people posting about NBA 2K24 anymore. And I certainly don't see a lot of people posting positive comments about that game. And to me, that's concerning. But at the same time, if you're a gamer who is open to playing past titles, who is interested in having a bigger basketball video game library, you know, from who knows, you know, from 2K, from Live, from, you know, all these different companies who made the, you know, basketball games in the past, then this, you know, disappointment with NBA 2K24, you know, this isn't going to be as big of an issue for you, right? Because you have stuff to play every day of the week. You know, there's always a game for you to put on. There's always a new experience.
Absolutely, you don't need a huge collection like ours to still have some, to still have a rotation of favorites to get your basketball gaming fix. That's for sure. And it definitely does feel like that Goodwill is gone. That enthusiasm for the brand is just not there anymore. And I do actually have an article coming out in April talking about the backlash for 2K24, Derek. I did pull some numbers on that, and the numbers are down from 2K23, especially on PC. The number of gamers playing at the same time, the number of people estimated to own the game, that enthusiasm is definitely down for 2K24. And as I say in the article, and as we've talked about on the podcast before, they've brought it on themselves.
Oh, no, 100%. It's just all the microtransaction BS. It's all the gambling mechanics. It's the janky gameplay. It's the unbalanced gameplay. I don't think we talk about that enough. The gameplay is just very poorly balanced. It's all the artificial boosts. I just think that they've really, really declined.
Lost their way. Yeah.
Yeah, lost their way in pretty much every way you could think of outside of depth, right? Depth is close to an all-time high for the series as far as the things that you can do. My NBA errors, as long as you accept the TOS, always something. But yeah, I mean, depth-wise, it's still there from like a mode and content perspective, but a lot of that depth doesn't matter when the gameplay isn't sharp, right? When the gameplay is so unbalanced, and then, you know, when you're getting bludgeoned to death by the microtransactions, the gambling mechanics, and all of that.
And as you pointed out, with the quantity of content, it is quantity over quality, because as you pointed out a few years ago with that Twitter or X thread, that post you have, where you've just gone through and covered maybe really only 1% of the most prominent errors. With
Jason Williams with a 0 on flashy pass, and Glenn Rice with a 0 3-point tendency. Meanwhile, guys who never shot threes with like a 50 on 3-point tendency, stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, the David Wesley with a 75 on like alley-oop tendency, stuff like that. Oh yeah, it was loaded.
And that means that it is quantity over quality. And look, I'm glad we have that in the game. If nothing else, it's there in the game that we can fix. And there are a lot of great community-made rosters every year. MJ Wizards just released the Magic Bird era roster on PlayStation 5 for NBA 2K24. So there are people who are definitely doing their best with those rosters. But as you pointed out in that thread and on the podcast and in forum posts and on Reddit, there's just so many really sloppy mistakes with that historical content. Again, great that we have it in the game, but it's not done nearly as well as it could be and should be. So some of that depth is kind of false depth in a way.
Agreed. I also want to point something out. You know how I mentioned the Starbucks coffee
Yes.
and how you can get games for that price or less and get just way more out of it? I thought this was funny. There was a post on X, and it's from at Megamat X86, and he states, "I love when I see people tweeting, quote, this game is on sale for $3.99. Any good? Think it's worth it?" End quote. And it's like a critically acclaimed AAA game from years ago. Brother, buy the game or a coffee from McDonald's. I don't care.
Yeah.
And I thought some of the responses were funny, because how many times have you and I gone on Steam and we'll see like under the special offers, like the sales, right? And you'll see some amazing AAA games that you may not own, or just amazing games in general. And they're like $5, Andrew.
So
they're like $3, and they're $2. And in your mind, you're saying, should I pick it up? And then, after I, have that thought, I'm like, am I an idiot? I just spent $30 or $40 on takeout, right? Even though I had food in the freezer, right? Or food in the fridge, etc., that I could have made here. And I'm really thinking about whether I should spend $2 or $3 on this game that could provide, hundreds of hours of entertainment. Like, what's wrong with me? But some of the responses were funny. So one of them was, buy it or buy 2 Slim Jims or a box of Gushers or some Hot Pockets or an Icy or a side of fries or a single bunch of celery. Another response was, cheaper than a McDonald's dollar menu burger at this point. And then any game less than $5 that was once $60 or more is worth it! Exclamation point. Another response was, seriously, it's like, yes, I think you should buy the video game instead of a pack of Juicy Fruit. A couple other responses were, do you have unlimited time and space? I still don't want to waste either of those things on something I don't like. Now, he has a point about time and space, but for one thing, if you're buying this game on Steam, there's a 2-hour window where you can return the game, right? That's number one, and it takes 2 seconds to go through Steam and return a game. Number two, he's talking about space. How easy is it, Andrew, to uninstall a game?
Yeah.
And then reinstall it? And then it still saves your progress.
It also installed an external drive. Put it to USB 3, and you can extend your Steam storage. That's what I've done.
Right, exactly. And what happens when you reinstall a game after you uninstall it? Your progress is usually there.
In the cloud.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the cloud. So I'm not sure I agree with that. And then he says unlimited, he wants to be able to have the time to, play a game. Well, if you don't think you have the time, then just don't buy it, right?
Do you even have a Steam library? If you haven't played half of your Steam library at least properly, I think I've played in quotation marks about 97% of my Steam library. That is to say, I've booted it up for at least 5 minutes each game. But as far as actually playing it, that's the whole thing. And, to that point, the PlayStation Plus subscription that I have the annual subscription for, that comes with between 2 and 4 free games a month. They can say, oh, well, it's not free because you're paying for the subscription. People, what I mean. It's included in the subscription. You get access to it. You can have them as long as you're paying that subscription. You can have this big library, big digital library. There are a lot of games that come out every month, Derek, that I don't really have any interest in, but they're free. So do you think I add them to my account? Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll admit it, there's quite a few games on Steam that I bought that were, I don't know, just a couple bucks. So for example, I was never that big of a fan of the Doom series. However, the most recent Doom game I thought was excellent. And I did play that for a bit. But they had like all the Doom games ever made, going back to the one that was released in 1993, all the way up to the newest one, and then games like Doom 64 and everything. They had like that entire series. I want to say it was like $10, Andrew. It was ridiculous. It was like all of the games, and I'm like,
sold.
Exactly, sold. Like I'm pretty sure that same day I had gotten takeout, and I think I got, I don't know, I think I got a pizza, and I think I got a sub, etc. And that takeout, including the tip and everything, was over $40, right? So like in my mind, I'm like, how can I not buy this series of Doom games? And then, you know, if I put them on every now and then and everything, it was definitely worth it. So the last comment here goes back to what I said. It states, right, I spend like 4 times that a day in snacks, drinks, and smokes. I'd buy those when I was broke as F because, holy crap, they priced it just for me. Like, why is that even a question? So my recommendation for the community and why I wanted to bring this up is if you see a game on Steam, or even, you know, if it's not Steam, let's say it's a console game and you're at the store or you're shopping around on eBay or something, and it's just like a couple bucks and whatnot, and it's a game that you want as part of your collection or a game that you actually think you'll spend some time with, even if it's not that much time, even if it's like a game that you would beat in 8 hours, right? Or 12 hours or something like that, get it. Because I want you to think about all the other things that you spend your money on. So, like, don't overthink it. If you love gaming, pick it up. That's a great price. And I also want to point out that when I go on Steam, and you've seen this too, the sales are just stupid. They're so good. Like, you'll have, like, the majority of the games in the Far Cry series for under $10. I've seen them for $3, $4. You know how good The Witcher 2 was? Like, that game is unbelievable. Like, it's such a good game. It's a PS3 title. It's right now on Steam, Andrew, for $2.99. $3.
If I didn't already have it.
Yeah, and I have it too. And then The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt on Steam right now is $9.99. That game is hundreds of hours of entertainment, beautiful visuals, an amazing story, etc. So, like, look for these sales, and if it's, you know, a genre that you like, if it's a, you know, art style that you like, and you think you're going to have fun with it, pull the trigger because you'll have fun.
That's pretty much what I did with the Tomb Raider series. I didn't actually play that growing up, but the whole series was on sale at one point, sometime a few years back, for about $20. Of course, I'm going to buy 7 or 8 games for $20. You know, that was the dream back in the day, to get as many games as possible for as little as possible. And definitely look out for those Steam sales. Look out for sales on sites like Fanatical, Green Man Gaming, Humble Bundle, GOG, the good old games website. They do sell classic games, obviously, but also new ones, DRM free in their case. So look around, shop around. You can get these Steam keys or the GOG versions DRM free, as I said. Look out for the sales. They're always having them, these sites, and Steam, obviously, in the Steam store. So, yeah, absolutely.
I picked up a Steam key for the original NBA Playgrounds, I think for like $2 or $3, Andrew. And my brother Nick and I played through that entire campaign, unlocked players. I want to say our playtime total on that game was around 30 hours. Are you kidding me? You're going to give me 30 hours of entertainment for $2? Sold. Like, give me that. Because if I go to the movies and I take one person with me to the movies, that's like probably around $30, right?
Exactly.
So, like, think about that. And what do you get when you go to the movies? You got, what, a couple hours of entertainment? And sure, the experience and it's fun and everything. Yeah, if it's a good movie, right, exactly. And I've seen some pretty bad ones in the past. But, yeah, and I think retro gaming is just so much easier to get into now because, you know, on most titles, the price is incredibly fair. And if you shop around, you know, whether you have an awesome local store that gives you a good price on them like I do, like Bull Moose, or, you know, you go on eBay, man, you can just find some awesome deals, you know, like so many good classic titles for under $10.
Yeah, if you still have those consoles, you know, obviously we've been talking about PC gaming here, but consoles as well for retro gaming, if you still have them in good working order, shop around for those as well. eBay, as you said, Derek, you can get some great prices. eBay, you do get some sellers trying to gouge. Avoid those. Obviously, look at how common a game is. If it is a very common release, don't be paying out the nose for it. That just goes without saying. You know, be a smart, savvy consumer. Before we go on, a reminder that the NLSC podcast comes out every week on the NLSC, me-live.com, as well as our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps. If you're listening on any of those apps, we'd greatly appreciate a review. To keep up with the show and everything we're doing with basketball gaming in general, connect with us on social media. On Twitter and Facebook, we are the NLSC, We also have an Instagram, NLSC Basketball, and on YouTube, we're youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. Once again, visit us at nba-live.com, where in addition to the podcast, you'll also find all of our original content, as well as our forum and modding community. But, talking about PC gaming, Derek, all this talk of sales and these great selection of games makes me think, PC gaming is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and it's still awesome in 2024. That's one part of a two-part community question. So, Andrew, I asked the community, what are your thoughts on PC gaming in 2024? In your opinion, do you think the benefits are worth the price? And what do you believe is the cost for a good gaming PC? So, Andrew, I spend the majority of my time on the PC gaming, whether it be using my Steam library or using emulators and ROMs and whatnot. I will go on the consoles every now and then, but just the PC is just so damn convenient. It is awesome. You spend a little bit more time on consoles than me, especially over the last few years, because you've been playing your NBA 2K14 PS4. My career, which, you're progressing through that. I believe you're on season 6 and whatnot. And you're also spending a ton of time on NBA 2K6 for the 360. But, to answer this question, before getting too much into it, yes, PC gaming is definitely worth it in 2024. And our listeners would be surprised at how affordable it actually is to get a PC that will handle, the AAA titles, the modern titles, all the different NBA 2K basketball video games, etc. It is a lot more affordable than you think.
It is. I mean, I got my new PC last year. It was about 1,500 Australian dollars. That at the current exchange rate, that's about 977 US. And I have, as I've mentioned before, what they're terming a mid-tier gaming PC. And that means it will actually run 993 of the top 1,000 rated games as per the System Requirements Lab. Can you run it? That website. And that's just the minimum requirements. If you go to the recommended specs, it's still around, I think, 750 to 800. So a mid-tier PC, which is a pretty strong video card, a good processor, not top of the line, but still a very strong machine. You can run all the old favorites, and again, new games that it's still going to last me, at least a few years running the new games coming out and next gen ports, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X ports, and of course some of those don't run at 60 FPS as we discussed last week, Derek. Some of the consoles are capped in that respect anyway, but yeah, a mid-tier machine, calling it mid-tier, and of course mid has taken on a very negative connotation in recent years. But I've got a machine that's going to last me for years for 1,500 Australian, as I said, around about 950, 970 US dollars. So, yeah, that is very affordable. I mean, certainly you could spend 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 on absolute top-of-the-line PC. Of course, give it a few months, it's going to be outdated anyway. It's like a car. As soon as it comes up,
you don't need to.
You don't need
right,
to.
But you don't need to. That's the thing. And you spent under 1,000 on yours, right? So I want to point something out. So my brother's computer was blue screening, and this was back in the fall. And he was like, you know what? I'm so fed up with this computer. Like I'm fighting with it every day. It's blue screening. I don't know what the problem is. I don't want to go through the trouble with fixing it right now. So I went to Walmart of all places, and I wasn't even looking for a gaming computer at that time. But I saw a gaming computer with specs that I'm like, wait a minute, this would be able to run anything he throws at it, based on the research that I've done. How much do you think this PC was, Andrew? $700 US. And it's a cyber power PC. I want to let people know that pre-built PCs are absolutely awesome. Don't listen to anybody that says, build your own is better, because 99.9% of the time, from what I've seen, the people that are building their own PCs are spending a lot more on the components that a pre-built will give you for much cheaper. And they also have like all the stress of, am I doing something wrong? Is it going to work properly?
Yeah, you know what you're doing. Yeah, that is a big thing, obviously. Yeah.
The majority of people are like, oh, I spent $2,000 on this. I can't believe it's in a pre-built for $1,000, right? Like, just don't ignore pre-builts, because CyberPower PCs, iBuyPower PCs, etc., they are awesome. Both my brother and I have a CyberPower PC. So it was this PC was $700, and it's a Ryzen 5 5500 3.6 gigahertz processor, an AMD Radeon RX 6700 10 gigabyte card, so GPU, 16 gigabytes of RAM, 1 terabyte solid state drive, and Windows 11 Home. And this $700 computer, Andrew, handles Helldivers 2, Wild Hearts. It handles the Horizon Zero Dawn. It handles the PS4, PS5 titles with no issues. It runs, and this is a point that I want to make, he can run anything 1080p 60 FPS on high or above with this rig. 1080p 60 FPS is still gold, right? It's still an awesome standard for gaming. If you're trying to run things in 4K, obviously it's going to be a little bit harder to do with a rig like this, and you're going to want to try to get something a little bit better. Maybe spend, I don't know, maybe in the $1,100 to $1,500 range, right? But for 1080p 60 FPS gaming, which I still think is amazing, and I'm not just talking about on a smaller monitor either. I'm not talking about on like a 24-inch or 27-inch monitor or anything like that. I'm talking about we're playing on 50-inch TVs, Andrew, right? It looks and feels awesome. And so the point I want to make is there's a lot of people that think that you have to spend $1,500 or $2,000 or even more on a gaming PC that's going to give you an amazing experience or to be able to run the newest titles. That couldn't be further from the truth. Think about what your TV's native resolution is. Think about what your TV's native FPS allowances, which is in hertz, when you're talking about TVs. And you'll realize that a lot of the games that you are playing, or the majority of the games that you're playing, isn't going to be higher than 1080p at 60 FPS, right? So I also don't even see that big of a difference from 4K from 1080p. I've said that before, because I've played games in 4K like MLB The Show, and I just don't see much of a difference. But the point is that don't disregard what people call mid or even sometimes low-end gaming PCs.
Entry level, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like don't disregard those, because if you want to have the full PC gaming experience where you can run the newest titles, right, on medium or higher, like we run them on high and ultra and whatnot, and you want to be able to use all the different emulators, RPCS3, the PS3 emulator, the PS2, PlayStation, N64, all Xbox, all the different consoles and everything, you can get that and, use all the mods, be able to, get your games, working on your PC at 60 FPS when they're capped out at 30 FPS on the consoles, games like the original Horizon Zero Dawn, games like Final Fantasy VII, the remake, all of that. Like, you can do all of that on a PC that you spend under $1,000 for. And my brother's PC is a perfect example of that. There's also PCs on eBay that I've seen that are open box or brand new that are $600 and lower. For example, there's an open box brand new CPU with an i7 8700 processor and a GTX 1080 graphics card, which is an old graphics card, but it's amazing. It's comparable to the AMD 5700 XT, which is the one I use right now. It has a 500 gigabyte solid state drive and a 6 terabyte standard hard drive, and it's only $500, Andrew. That setup will handle pretty much everything that you throw at it, and it gives you the perfect full PC gaming experience. And if you go into eBay and you put something in there like GTX 1080 gaming PC, you'll see how many good options there are. Or the AMD equivalent, AMD Radeon 5700 XT gaming PC, you'll see all the amazing options under even $800 that would get you into PC gaming and be able to run all the titles. So I know that's a little bit long-winded there. And Roger and Nate the Live at One Legends wanted me to go over my rig, and they wanted you to go over yours, like our specs. The rig that I'm using right now, I actually bought it years ago. And it's a CyberPower PC, gaming desktop, AMD Ryzen 7 3700X processor, 16 gigabytes of memory, Radeon RX 5700 XT graphics card, 2 terabyte hard drive, plus a 240 gigabyte solid state drive. And when I bought that, I want to say it was around $1,200 or $1,300, and that was years ago. Now you can get this rig cheaper, obviously. But every single thing I have thrown at this rig, Andrew, it can run it. We've been playing the PS5 titles on PC on the highest settings. We've been playing all of the PS4 titles. We've had, with beautiful 1080p, 60 FPS. So I didn't break the bank on that PC, and it's been incredibly reliable. So what are the specs of your rig?
Yeah, so as I said, I spent about 1,500 Australian on this, again around about $970 US. It's an i5 9400F processor. It's an Nvidia GeForce 1660 Super 6GB video card, 32 gigabytes of RAM, 1 terabyte solid state drive, 2 terabyte hard disk drive. So yeah, it's done the job for everything that I want to play as well, and is, again, not top of the line, but fairly future-proof for the games that I play. I can see that it's going to run the latest WWE 2K, and that is a next-gen port, a PS5, Xbox Series X port, so that bodes well for, hopefully, a next-gen port for 2K25 PC.
Yeah, and that's a great rig. And the thing that matters is that it runs everything you need it to run, and you get the full PC gaming experience. If you look at the card that I mentioned earlier, GTX 1080, that card may have come out, I think, in 2016 or 2017, Andrew. But guess what it has? It has ray tracing, right? It has 4K support. Exactly. And I want people to think about it. You don't see a big jump in PS4 to PS5 graphics, do you? We've talked about this before. Right? There's not a big jump, not a big technical improvement, it feels like, from this, last gen to the current gen. So if that amazing graphics card, which is, some people consider it maybe the best release of all time of graphics card, if that was released in 2016 during PS4 gen to be able to run everything on Ultra, how do you think it's going to handle your PS5 titles that are ported to PC? Pretty damn well, right?
Yeah.
And you can look it up on Reddit and whatnot, and how people are still using this GTX 1080. And somehow, people are still using the 5700 XT, which I have, which came out years ago as well. And they're running all of these titles, right? And sometimes people are running these titles in 4K, right? At a stable, good FPS, something comparable to what they're getting on a console, and sometimes better, obviously. So, like I said, when people say mid-range or even sometimes low end, and they try to use that as an attack, or it's not good enough for you and everything. These rigs that they're calling that, they can run your games at 1080p and 60 FPS, sometimes even higher than that, on medium, high, or ultra settings. And in even games, like I stated, like Helldivers 2, Wild Hearts, Final Fantasy VII, the remake, true PS5 titles, etc. But I also got that laptop, and that I spent about $1,200 on. I didn't need to spend this much, but I actually tried to spend a little bit more because I wanted the bigger hard drive. And honestly, it was right after my injury, and I was like, I'm going to be stuck in bed, and I just want this awesome laptop. But anyways, this was $1,200. It's an Asus TUF 165 hertz, 17-inch screen laptop, Ryzen 7 7735HS, Radeon RX 7600S graphics, 32 gigabytes of RAM. It's a 2 terabyte hard drive, and Windows 11 Pro. And you and I have connected many times with me using this laptop. This laptop can handle absolutely everything, Andrew. It handles every game I throw at it, modern or in the past using an emulator. etc. And there's a lot of people out there that are like, you have to spend more, right? Your laptop is considered mid-range, but I can play absolutely everything on this maxed out. So don't listen to the crowd that says, well, your computer is low end or your computer is mid-range and you need to get something better, because often that's not the case.
A lot of PC Master Race snobbery goes into it has to be top of the line. Absolutely. And, to make an NBA, a basketball comparison here, a mid-range, a mid-tier, or even entry-level gaming PC. It is a gaming PC. Entry-level or mid-tier is still going to be a powerful PC, much like a role player in the NBA is still going to be one of the best players in the world.
Yeah, but that's a good point too, right? Like maybe somebody considers like Klay Thompson a mid-tier player now. I'll be Klay Thompson. Yeah. That's fine. He's still one of the best players.
Okay, would you be Klay Thompson or Ginger Klay?
Ginger Klay from Kids Sports Basketball. Yeah, I'm going to Ginger Klay all day. He is the best player in the world. But no, I just think that yes, there's definitely some misinformed people, and then there's also some, I don't know, people who are super brand loyal and kind of snobbery about it.
Definitely.
Like, I've said to people that I've had an AMD card, right? Like I said that I've had the 5700 XT, and sometimes the first responses that I get is, oh, well, those drivers suck, and how are you not with Nvidia? And just like kind of like snobbery stuff, because like they use Nvidia, so they're super loyal to the brand, and maybe they've heard some bad things about AMD, so they equate that every single AMD card that people are going to be unhappy with it. But that's not the way things work.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah.
And sure, AMD doesn't have the same market share, not even close, because NVIDIA is a lot more popular and they do a lot better with their advertising and whatnot for their cards and everything. It doesn't mean that every AMD card is crap, right? It doesn't mean that every AMD graphics card people have issues with. It doesn't mean that there aren't AMD cards that can outperform some NVIDIA cards in many aspects and whatnot. And like I said, my AMD card, my 5700 XT, is, let's see, how old is it? I think it's like, I don't know, maybe 5 to 7 years old or whatever. But man, this thing handles everything I throw at it, and we've created a ton of memories using it.
Yeah, people get really weird with their brand loyalty, and I understand it. All of my PCs have been Intel and Nvidia cards, and it's not because I believe AMD and Radeon are not capable, because they absolutely are. It's more about familiarity with the brand, with their models, with how they...
with the software too, right?
With the specs.
Like you understand how it works.
Yeah,
right.
It is familiarity in that respect, but... I haven't been that kind of fanboy since I was a Nintendo fanboy in the 90s. That was fun. Nintendo versus Sega in the 90s was fun, but since then, well, I'm not a 10-year-old anymore, Derek, so I'm not going to engage in that kind of...
Sega Genesis does what Nintendo don't,
yeah.
Except for the fact they don't have enough buttons and triggers on their controller for certain games.
Absolutely, exactly. And of course, with PC gaming, I mean, our community... We know the benefits. Modding. All the things we can do with modding games. It's not just basketball games that can be modded. Modding goes right back to the 90s. Those Doom WODs, for example, those custom levels for Doom and Duke Nukem 3D and so many other games. Commander Keen has even got custom levels. They've made whole new games out of the Commander Keen games that were released on PC back in the day, and made the sequels that were never actually officially made. Made some unofficial fan sequels that I haven't actually played, but I have seen... YouTube videos of it and seen the screenshots, and they do look awesome. Fantastic fan projects there. So, on top of the power of PCs, the availability of the libraries, because we do have a lot more multi-platform games these days when it comes to the wrestling games and the basketball games, obviously. Unfortunately, Live has been console only for many years, and even to that point, we haven't had a Live since Live 19, but huge library of games for PC, obviously, and the modding capabilities. Yeah, it's... I've never been PC over console. I've always been PC and console, Derek. But to that point, I love my PC gaming. Grew up playing on PC and console. Got Mario on Nintendo, and I'm playing LucasArts and Sierra Adventure games on PC, and basketball games on PC and console. So I'm absolutely about both, but PC gaming is absolutely relevant in 2024.
Yeah, a few more notes before we get to the community responses. I looked it up. So the 5700 XT that I use, it was released in 2019. So it's about 5 years old. Like I said, it handles everything that I throw at it. The other question related to this was, is PC gaming worth it? Listen, the advantages to PC gaming are a lot of times you can run the different titles over the years, even the newest modern titles, at a higher FPS than what console allows. Examples of that are games like the Final Fantasy VII Remake, Horizon Zero Dawn, games that on console are capped at 30 FPS. You can play them on a smooth 60 FPS on PC. That is a big advantage for those that like those titles and want that additional smoothness. You can also have the games look better oftentimes on PC, because on console usually the graphics seem to be capped out. I think it was like on medium in comparison to like on PC, but on PC you have high and ultra settings, right? And if you have a rig that can handle it, you can make those games even look better to go along with working smoother. Like, you wouldn't believe how good Horizon Zero Dawn PC looks on my brother's computer. It's just a lot smoother than what it is on console. And then we've talked about it before. You have the ROMs, you have the emulators, you can have a huge library of classic games that you can always go to. You can connect easily with people online using a program like Parsec, right? And, it's easier to record footage in higher quality by being on PC gaming, using programs like OBS, which is a free program, Action, which is only $20, etc. And you also have the ability to mod and use mods made by the community. We've talked about the UBR and URB for NBA 2K14, the URB for NBA 2K13. There's still a bunch of classic mods that were created for the mid-early 2000s NBA Live games. You have mods for games like Skyrim and other newer titles for the PC and mid-2010s titles. And there is just so much you can do on a PC. And Nate and Roger also wanted to know what our setup was. So the way I play is my PC and my brother's PC is actually in our living room. And we have two 50-inch TVs side by side. So it's almost like the living room is a gaming room. And our computers are hooked up to those TVs. So we both play on a 50-inch TV. We both use Xbox One wireless controllers for 99.9% of the games that we play. And we have a USB transmitter plugged into the top of the computer that recognizes the controller, and then we can hit the ground running that way. So we're using our PCs. This is another point I want to make, Andrew. We're using our PCs like consoles, right? They're hooked up to TVs, and we run all of our games 1080p at 60 FPS on those TVs, and it just works perfectly for us. So that is my setup.
I have more of an old school setup in that I have it connected to a monitor, 26-inch monitor on a desk. And although with the new PC, of course, it is actually properly designed with the case, Derek, so I can actually connect it to the TV if I wish, because the HDMI port is not covered up by the case. That was a weird design of the previous PC that I had, not properly built in that respect, unfortunately. Didn't realize this until I got it, unfortunately. But I just have that traditional setup. I do have the wireless controller, the Logitech F710. There's also the wired version of that, the 310, and that has the X input and the D input, the old D input, so you can flick that switch and have all of the triggers be recognized for old D input games like the early 2000s, mid 2000s NBA Lives. So that's great for retro gaming, and either the 310 or the wireless version, the F710. And that's basically my setup. Nothing too fancy there. Just in the in the computer chair at the desk. So a bit old school in that regard. But yeah, just getting yourself controllers that resemble console controllers. You have all the same benefits. Obviously, there are some PC gamers that are very anti-controller. I don't know why, because PC controllers go back to the 80s. Joysticks and gamepads go back to the 80s. So peripherals are not a console-only thing. They are very much an advantage of PC. Steering wheels, sticks. Yeah.
Yeah. And if we're talking about sports games, come on. Like, if you're talking about sports video games, use a controller whenever possible. So it's just that much easier.
Yeah, they're designed for it.
Just, I mean, it's really hard to play basketball video games with a keyboard.
It is. I mean, I can do it for Live 96 because there's only, like, 2-3 buttons. But, yeah, for anything sophisticated, I'm not going to use the keyboard. There's just too many... I grew up playing the piano, Derek, but I don't want to play the piano when I'm playing a basketball video game. So a controller is the way to go more often than not. And yeah, that's basically my setup. If there's anything we can clear up as far as the technical specs, but basically you do want that powerful video card. You want that storage space of the larger hard drive, the good processor that is, as we said, entry-level and mid-tier gaming rigs still have great processors that are going to be future-proof for playing on pretty good settings for years to come. So... it's more. I guess if you're looking at the price range, Derek, that's where you can get that. That's perhaps a better guide, especially for pre-builds.
My opinion is this: if you want a rig that can still handle the newer titles and then handle the past titles and the emulators and everything, if you look hard enough, I think you can find a really good rig for $500, $500 to $600. I could send you listings, right, of things that I like, the one I mentioned earlier about the GTX 1080, where it's around $500, and I know that you would be able to handle the modern titles and past titles, all the emulators and whatnot. I also want to refresh people's memory that I spent around $300 on a mini PC, if you remember correctly. This thing is the size of a calculator, and I can run NBA 2K19, 2K17, etc. on medium settings, and those are PS4 titles, Andrew. And I can handle the N64 emulator, the PS2 emulator, etc. It has trouble with the PS3 emulator, but I can handle all of those emulators and record footage with action, etc. So it does have issues. It's it's a $300 PC. It has issues running a game like Elden Ring, right? It can run that probably at 720p smooth, but not at 1080p. But for a $300 PC, to be able to handle the PS4 NBA 2K titles with medium settings at 1080p and be able to record that footage with no lag and all of that stuff, that's pretty damn good, right? Yeah. So just so you don't need to break the bank to get into PC gaming.
And of course, we do have listeners from around the world, so we will note, of course, that Derek is talking in US dollars, I'm talking in Australian dollars. That is what we default to, so do the conversions, obviously, to your local currency.
Exactly.
So once again, Nate, Roger, please follow up if you have any further questions that if we didn't make that clear enough with the specs and so forth. Happy to answer any of those questions. But those are kind of the price ranges. If you look at systems in that price range, then you are definitely going to get something that is going to do the job. Is what we would recommend. But let's get to some more responses now. JMO, original JMO, modder in our community, of course, says the pros of PC gaming: game accessibility, customizability, online community, graphics, emulation, versatility, and parsec, which I would certainly agree with. Cons compared to consoles: price, takes more space, lack of portability, hard to learn. This is the biggest barrier in his opinion. It also says around $12,000 for a decent PC. And, I mean, consoles do have that the benefit of having standardized hardware. If you get a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X, obviously you don't have to be worrying about any of these system specs. As you noted, Derek, there are issues with the optimization for those platforms. You do have games that are running at 30 FPS even in 2024, but as far as if you're not as technically savvy, or you're a bit concerned about getting the right PC, of course, obviously there's a lot of advice out there, but consoles do have that advantage as far as standardized hardware, and it's why some developers do seem to focus on console more than PCs, because they don't have to support all that different hardware. No, but I think those are fair pros and cons.
No, I love his post, and he's right. And I think that the price he mentioned he said a decent gaming PC of $1,200, I think that's high. I think that he's overshooting that a little bit based on my findings and whatnot and what we use and my brother's computer and all of that stuff. But $1,200, his quote there, is actually on the low end of what people think it costs, right, to get into quality gaming on PC. And that means he is in tune to, PC gaming, how it works, and, what would be a competent rig to use and whatnot. And one thing that he mentions, he's talking about, the learning curve, right? And he's right. One of the biggest advantages of console gaming is you turn on the console, you grab your controller, and you hit the ground running, right? You start playing the game. You don't have to worry about, oh my God, is my console overheating? Even though PS5, from what I know, was overheating and crashing. But, that's not something you think about as a console gamer. You just pick up your controller and you start playing the game. But on PC, like I said, you're thinking sometimes, is this going to overheat? What should I set my graphics settings to? What am I going to use for a controller? All of that stuff. So, I think that consoles for a lot of people are more safe, right? They're a safer purchase. They're an easier solution. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that because I've created a ton of memories, on console.
And of course, just as there are PC exclusives, there are console exclusives as well. And Jeff Cortinas, says that PC gaming is worth it, quotes $1,500 to $2,000. Again, that is higher than you have found, Derek, but you can get an awesome system for that price in Australia or in the US, obviously. Ryan notes the Steam Deck, says it costs $400, plays pretty much every game in existence, and you can plug it into a TV and have a console-like experience. Plus, you get access to all the indie sports games. And that is a big advantage of PC gaming. There are indie games on console as well, but Steam is great for indie games.
Well, I want to point something out about what Rock stated. So he said $1,500 to $2,000 US. If you want like a top-of-the-line rig with the newest graphics card, that's what you're going to probably spend. So I've done some research on it, and I can get the newest AMD graphics card and AMD processor for around $1,800 in a rig. So I think the newest AMD graphics card is a 7900 XTX. And I want to say the processor is something like a 7950X or something like that. But my research showed me that right around that price range that he mentioned, I can get top of the line, right? Like that. And if you're talking about top of the line, you're talking about the ultimate, supposedly, and like future proof. So he's not wrong if he's talking about like this is going to be a top of the line PC. But like I said, I don't think that the majority of gamers need that. I don't think that that's something that would even benefit the majority of gamers. I don't think it's something that they would even use, like all of those additional resources and additional specs and everything. But no, and you mentioned about indie games. There are so many good indie games on Steam, and they're priced so well. And there's games like I mentioned in the past, like Unruly Heroes, that is an indie title. And there's even one called Nine Monkeys of Sheol, which just has an awesome side-scroller gameplay. There's a lot of love put into so many of these indie titles, and you can find just some awesome indie title sports games like football games and whatnot and soccer games, but then also adventure games, side scrollers, sometimes third person shooters, stuff like that. So yeah, there's a ton of awesome indie games.
And not forgetting, of course, one of our favorite indie games, Basketball Classics, Josh and Dave, Nemo Gamo.
Right, exactly. And that game is not only super affordable, but it is loaded with customization and it has awesome gameplay. So yes, that's an awesome title.
One more response from X, also known as Twitter, or formerly known as Twitter, we should say, from Ari the Dev at First Baseman, says, PC gaming is great in the sense that you're able to play all of your games on any capable hardware and upgrade the hardware accordingly forever, really, but that experience can be soured if you endlessly have to tinker around to make something playable if it's not optimized. And that goes back to what JMO said about the complexity of PC gaming and the relative simplicity of console gaming.
Yeah, but he also mentioned an advantage to PC gaming. You can upgrade.
Upgradable, yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
You can upgrade your CPU, you can upgrade your GPU, you can upgrade your RAM, you can have an optical drive installed. I know, I can't believe I mentioned that in 2024. How dare I want a CD player, like an internal one installed.
I mean, I have one, but just to rub it in.
Yeah, I don't. I have an external one. I'd love an internal one. But yeah, I think that there's also, though, a lot of people that think that they have to tinker when they don't. That's the other thing too, is a lot of these games, you just play them on the default settings when you boot up the game, and you are good to go and you can, play and whatnot. And then there's some games where you have to go in and adjust the resolution in game, or maybe tweak a setting or two. But yeah, consoles are more convenient in that way. I also want to point out that the Steam Deck comment, he states something around, $400, plays pretty much every game in existence, etc., and you can plug it into a TV. I've read the reviews about this. I don't have a Steam Deck, but when you plug it into your TV, you lose resolution, right? It's not going to look great. From what I've seen is sometimes the footage looks like it's on 720p. Some games look better than others and everything. I don't think that the Steam Deck, if you think about it, Steam Deck is a handheld. I don't think that the Steam Deck can replace the functionality, convenience, and everything of a desktop PC. I don't think that it can be as all around and give you the same quality. So I just wanted to mention that.
It sounds like you are sacrificing some power for the sake of the convenience and portability, I suppose.
Right. It seems like a great thing, right? Like Steam Deck, like it's interested me. Like I've looked at it and I'd be like, hey, this
we talked about it,
cool.
Yeah, on the show, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not something that I pulled the trigger on yet because I just I don't see the advantages over what I already have.
And heading over to the Discord for another response now, Wizcard Rush says, I'm glad to see the prices of PC parts, namely GPUs, drastically go down over the past year or two. I think PC gaming has the unique ability for you to have an endlessly backwards compatible device that plays games from the beginning of gaming to the newest releases as long as you have a powerful enough PC. You also have the flexibility to run games at the resolutions, frame rates, and graphics details of your choosing. Personally, I'd say a budget of anything from $500 to under $1,000 is a good price range that will put you in line with the current consoles, and most times outperform them. Also remember that you can do so much more with a PC than just gaming, so I think it justifies the price. And of course, yes, if you're doing content creation, video production, PC is pretty crucial for that, and our PCs handle our video production, I would say, very well, especially thanks to Mavavi and Action, as you recommended to me, and thank you once again for putting me onto those programs, and others in the community. I know they love them as well. That's also in the price range that you mentioned. And yeah, it's great to see the prices of those parts coming down, although, as you said, getting the pre-builds is often more affordable anyway. But yeah, the backwards compatibility, sometimes it does take a bit of work. Emulators, virtual machines, the N-Glide wrappers, things like that, but it can be done. So yeah, there's so much we can do with PC. And of course, then again, you do have content creation as well.
I love it. Someone gets it. He listed the price range I was talking about, right? And he's talking about how it can handle the modern titles and all of that stuff. Absolutely love it. And the other advantage to PC gaming is the content creation piece, right? The ease of creating content and, uploading to YouTube in high quality and using those programs that we discussed and everything. So yeah, no, that is a great comment. And I definitely agree. So, Andrew, the other community question that I asked is, basketball gamers, do you think that NBA 2K25 will come out for PC and be a PS5 series port? And for the company, what do you think the pros are if they were to do this? Before we get to the community responses, I've said it before, the pros are visibility for the brand, right, for 2K. I've stated before that, PC gamers, I believe that they're the ones who often upload the most content. They're the ones with super popular YouTube channels, sometimes with hundreds of thousands of subscribers. And even if they're using mods in their PC version of the game that you can't use on console, and those videos are getting all of those views, it's still huge promotion for the brand, right? And I've said this before, it's not about the number of sales that they get on PC, like the dollar amount or PC units sold, but it's about the visibility. It's about the promotion. And they get a lot, there's a lot of brand help that happens from the PC community. And think about the hundreds of thousands of people over the years that are aware of mods like the UBR, the URB, the mods that are on the NLSC forums and everything. This is amazing for the company. And if they're only porting a PS5 series version to the PC, what's a port, Andrew? The bones are there, right? The game, it just needs to be brought to the PC. So it's not like an extra, how do I put it? They don't have to reinvent the game to put it on PC.
No,
right?
The current consoles have the same architecture as PCs, which makes porting much easier, yeah.
Right, exactly. So it's, in my opinion, a no-brainer if I'm the company to bring this game to PC in that current gen, PS5 series format, because the benefits way outweigh the cons, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you've covered the benefits there. I absolutely agree. Nothing to add to that point. But as far as, do I think 2K25 will come up for PC and be that PS5 Series X port, I think if it's going to happen, this is the year. In part because I think there's a good chance that 2K24 is the last PS4 X1 release. I've said this on previous shows. I've said it in an article before, that you look at the preview season, they pretty much didn't touch the last gen version, the prior gen version of 2K24 during the previous season. A couple of very almost obligatory mentions at some point, didn't even go into like the differences of this is what we're doing for next gen. But by the way, we still have some cool stuff lined up for last gen as well. No, they didn't do that this past previous season. So it wouldn't surprise me if last year's game is the last for that generation of consoles. To that point, because that is the version that's being ported to PC. Hopefully that means not the end of PC releases, but the end of porting that version, and now the beginning of porting the PS5 Xbox Series X version. And as I've mentioned before, WWE 2K24 and I think 2K23 as well were ports from the latest generation of consoles. So it is something that the company is doing. I think it is certainly possible this year, and I hope it is. It wouldn't be good to get another last-gen port, although I would suggest that it's better than no PC version at all.
I'm 50-50 on this. I think there's a 50% chance they do not release on PC, and a 50% chance they release on PC, but it's a PS5 series port. And I agree with you. I think that the PS4 gen era of NBA 2Ks is over. I think 2K24 was the last release for that gen, and, I think that it wasn't received well. I think people think that it's super stale. I don't know what the sales figures were on the PS4 version, but I just don't think that it was a strong release for them. So, we will see what happens. I hope it comes out for PC. I hope 2K25 comes out for PC and that it's the newest gen and that people are able to mod it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would say that I'm close to 50-50 as well. I mean, I do think, once again, that the last gen is done, but hopefully that doesn't mean the end of PC as well. But, as you said, we shall see. As far as how the community feels about it, Sticky Fingers says, I don't think so. Perhaps they surveyed the market, adding de novo anti-tamper, but 2K24 only took off lately after the Steam sales. It's still $1 to $2 million. We'll see. And post a screenshot of statistics that actually I do reference in that upcoming article. Around about 20,000 people playing in the 24-hour peak from when he took that screenshot. 30,000 is the max. That is down slightly from 2K23, as I said. The PC version is not the most popular version, but there is a very passionate fan base, to that point, that enjoys the PC version.
Right, but I also think that the sales were down on PC because people are just sick of the PS4 ports.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I understand his skepticism.
Stephen, the Live King, says, it better be. It's the only way I'm buying it, or if they release an offline version only. The only reason I feel they won't is because of data miners. They don't want their season rewards being leaked. I mean, I see the point, but considering that my team and my career do already have the same rewards, or maybe not my career, my team definitely does across both versions because there is cross-platform progression on the on PlayStation and Xbox. I mean, that's possibly a concern, but I think that's probably already happening anyway. I think it's mostly about whether they think it's profitable enough.
I see the concern, and I think the biggest reason why is because modders break into the game's files, right? And what he's worried about is, I think, modders breaking into the game's files and finding stuff related to, maybe there's, we talked about the Wild West pack, right, for NBA 2K24, and there was like there was art for like a 100 overall Kobe or something like that, or a high 90s. What if that's found in the files? Like, what if there's a card that hasn't been released yet for seasonal rewards or something like that, that hasn't been shown, that the company hasn't put out there on social media and everything, and then all of a sudden somebody finds it posts it on social media and says, oh my God, this card is coming or whatever. And then it makes, 2K, not be able to announce it. Maybe they have to pivot, all of that stuff. So I think he's more thinking about people breaking into the files and finding stuff that 2K, was supposed to release on a future date, and then announcing it and breaking that news. I also
for sure.
see the problem.
But couldn't they? Yeah. They're doing that already, surely. Or they could.
Presumably. Yeah. But we've had that's true. And I think that it's probably always a concern for the company. That's my guess.
Yeah.
When
and
they're
piracy. Yeah, absolutely.
PC, and piracy. And then there's also the issue too, and I've mentioned this before, of people going in there and seeing that, hey, these textures for the players and the body models and all of that stuff are the same as they were on PS4. Is this really building from the ground up?
Yeah.
Right? Like the art, is it just new lighting and all of that stuff? So there's a sort of thought of, could we be exposed for something? I'm not saying that they did anything wrong. I'm not saying that there's not new textures and all of that stuff. But, with people breaking into game files and knowing how the old game files worked, is there going to be that thing of, oh my God, they were just using PS4 stuff on PS5 this whole time?
It's less impressive,
right?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So much for this new tech and everything. So there's definitely concerns with stuff like that.
Mateo says the key should be they decide to stop with the PS4 version, definitely. And yes, obviously, if they stop with that last-gen version, then hopefully the port switches to the next gen or current gen, the new gen, whatever you want to call it. And at Him We Need says they gave us a Game Pass for 2K24 next gen, but it was using cloud, so no access to files and such. If they do port 2K25 next gen to PC, 2K might make it Game Pass exclusive like 24 and make it where we can't mod the game anymore. Hopefully it doesn't wind up being the case. I mean, that's possible, but if we look back at when PC got the latest version with 2K15 and over the next few years, obviously, then it was just released as a regular Steam release, so I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. But yes, I would agree that shutting down modding in that way would be definitely unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, I see his concern there. I don't think that would happen. But let's say that did happen. Let's say that they made it so it couldn't be modded. I still think that the PC community would be able to record the footage in often higher quality than what's recorded on console. I think that they would still be able to show out the game on YouTube, and I still think that in social media in general, and I still think that there's a major benefit for the company to port that to PC, even without mods, to be completely honest with you. And I think that the PC community overall would appreciate the next-gen title on PC because they're ready, right? Whether they can mod it or not, they're ready.
And one last response here from our Facebook page. Kieran says, I doubt they would bring out a PC version. They're so far away from caring about the fan experience right now that has been made clear. Even if they did, I don't know how many copies they'd have to sell for it to be worthwhile in their eyes, but you can bet anything it'll be a port. And obviously it's going to be a port of the PlayStation 5 Xbox Series X version. The PC is not going to get its own special enhanced version or anything like that. It's going to start with the consoles and then be ported to PC. But I understand the skepticism because we've seen PC releases disappear before with NBA Live. We thought we would get a next-gen port beginning with 2K22. We knew that it wasn't going to happen with 2K21 because the PC version came out before those consoles launched, but we thought it was going to be like the previous generation where, okay, we missed out on 2K14, PS4, and Xbox One on PC, 2K15, that's when we get the port. That hasn't happened yet. So I get the skepticism, I get the pessimism for the PC version, and I mean, I certainly hope you're wrong, Kieran, but I get it, and I could see it happening. I'll certainly admit that.
Yeah, I mean, I think just everything's up in the air, right, with the PC version of NBA 2K. And what's weird about it is I don't think that it has as much to do with the player base. I think that I don't think it has as much to do with the sales. I think that it has to do with concerns over modding, to be honest with you. And I think that maybe it has something to do with the piracy piece, and it may have something to do with the fact, like the Live King stated, data mining and whatnot. And I think that there's a lot of, savvy people out there. There's a lot of people out there that know how to, break into files. And I think that there's a lot of people out there that know how to manipulate and whatnot. And I think that that's a genuine concern for the company, because I think if those concerns weren't there, I think that releasing on PC would be a no-brainer. That's my opinion. But like I said, I just don't think it has to do with overall sales.
Yeah, I do think security is a concern. I mean, you look at all the hacking that has been going on PC. I know they've been trying to combat that the last couple of years with the anti-cheat measures to varying degrees of success. And of course, it's also interfered with modding, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, the online scene on PC is terrible because of all of that hacking that goes on. We don't want to see that. The data mining, the piracy, definitely concerns. So those are the drawbacks from the publisher and developer point of view. And of course, compatibility with all the different hardware compared to consoles. Those are the challenges. But once again, we know how great PC gaming can be. A very passionate fan base of PC basketball gamers, talented modding community, etc. So fingers crossed for good news.
Yeah, I have my fingers crossed. But once again, I want to go back to a point before we wrap up the show. Don't limit yourself in the gaming space. If you see a game that's, a great price, if you see a game under $10, under $5, etc., buy it. Because just think about all the other stuff you spend your money on, and not saying it's all useless and whatnot, but, for temporary, enjoyment and all of that stuff. Just think about some of the price of some of these games and how many hours of entertainment you and maybe even, a friend or family member could get out of it.
Absolutely. And thank you as always for all of the responses to Derek's questions. Love the discourse, Derek.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you for all of your responses. Thanks for always interacting with the mailbag, and thanks for listening to the show.
And with that being said, that has brought us to the end of this week's show. Thank you once again for tuning in. Please join us again next week and every week on the NLSC, nv-live.com, our YouTube channel, or your podcast app of choice. In the meantime, you can connect with us on social media, that's where you can get in touch with us, and of course, stay up to date with the podcast and all of our content. So Derek, go ahead and plug the handles.
Yeah, you can reach me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at D43G and at D4384. I'm also on YouTube, D43, and on the NLSC, D43.
As for me, I'm Andrew in the forum and Andrew NLSC on X. The NLSC itself is on X and Facebook at the NLSC. We're also NLSC Basketball on Instagram and Threads. Our YouTube channel is at NBA Live Series Center. And of course, keep it locked to the NLSC itself, nv-live.com, for everything we do for basketball video games. So, thank you once again for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone.